Okay, hello, test, test. Can you hear me? Hopefully you can. Well, let's get straight to it, shall we? Okay, so hello everybody. Hello Mike. And yeah, we are going to pick up where we left off yesterday with the, well, essentially combining the grid, the tiles, and the cracks together in a fashion that will allow me to control uh, each aspect of the material, each of these parts of the material, like the grid and the tiles separately, and also sort of separate the floodfill masks for. Uh, Sorry, Mike. Are you streaming? Says starting soon. No, it should have transitioned. Can't you see? Um, that's interesting. Okay, we might have some technical difficulties. Maybe there is a delay. I don't know. I haven't said any. No and no, you can't, huh? Well, that's funny. Okay, okay, okay. Okay, hello unnamed player. How you doing today? So let's see. Hopefully Mike will be able to join or rejoin. Uh, maybe I'll wait a few. Okay, perfect. Okay, so let me just repeat. I just said a few sentences. So yeah, hello everybody again. I guess I can cut this off if I edit anything in the future. Anyhow, so we are going to pick up where we left off. Last time or yesterday we went through the base grid height map for this material. And we created the tiles and we created the black and white masks that drive the fragment removal and the large scale like whole segments removal based on noise, Berlin noise, and we also created the sort of the black and white mask for the cracks. And now we need to start building two separate sort of aspects of the, or like two separate graph lines, pipelines. One that will like control the black and white masks for the yeah, for the separation of the tiles from the base, and also we want to add in the cracks. And for that, as you remember probably from yesterday, having a black and white mask for the cracks is an overkill, and it creates a lot of problems because it goes all the way through, and it creates a lot of tessellation issues. You can already see that I still have a lot of them here, right? Like you can see the anti-aliasing problems there, and you can also see that they are quite thick. You know, this is at 2K. At 4K, it's not as bad, but getting really hairline thick or thin cracks is a difficult thing if you go way too deep on that subtract blending with black and white masks for your cracks. Hopefully that makes sense. So what I did, I had to sort of start thinking in like how to say, like building two pipes essentially, one for the black and white masks that will drive the separation and the height variation for each of the fragments and the slopes of the fragments and stuff like that, and I also had to sort of remove the cracks in order to add them again. And so that's what we are doing today. That's what we are starting with today. So all I did at first was to take the original. Oops, sorry for the epileptic thing. Let me just make these bit larger. So what I did, I actually went all the way back here, where we created the original sort of coverage masks, and I just create a single mask out of them, because that's where the whole tiles are going to be, right? And so that's what's happening here. And I also added the and I used this to drive a guided blur, a mask blur in this case, and I only blurred the tiles with the cracks, right? This is the mask that says this is where the cracks will be visible. This is where they are going to be remapped by the floodfill. And I'm taking the same mask and saying, you know what, let's actually take these cracks out, blur them out a little bit, and that's going to create a new mask, a mask that sort of doesn't have the cracks again. I could, in theory, just have used, I could have used just this, but this already has that breakup in it, right? It has these like additional fragments in it. And so I just wanted to sort of retain the information that there are some aspects and some parts missing, but I also wanted to blur that out for the small cracks, so that I could like re-add them with more bevel, more blur, etc. So that's the first steps here. Then I'm just adding that because the blur removed some of this detail here, like these edge details. So I'm just adding that back in, yeah, so that we have an accurate mask. It's a small thing, but it will show. It showed in the height map. So again, like if you look at this, so we have this blurred out thing. It blurred this out. Then we grayscale to mask it, and you see that it expanded because of the blur. So we do not want to do that. We just have to reconstitute, subtract the edge damage. And then I have this new flood fill for some of the loose fragments, some of these fragments in the that's like off the main grid, if you will, and we are adding that to our mask, so we have that again. And that's actually going to be the basis for our height. This is the mask that actually creates the height map for the tiles. I'm using I'm using levels node to just limit it to 65% of the height, the total height, so that because I know that I will be adding another layer of detail, and most importantly, I want it to have just about the same height for this like second layer of tiles. So I thought maybe maybe one tile could be like 30 to 40% of the total height of the material, and so that's why I limited it in height essentially. All right. So now we have to deal with the cracks. Right now we don't have any cracks. We have re-established our masks and our fragments, but now we have to handle the cracks. And I still don't know if this is the best way, but so I'm essentially taking new masks that only isolate the cracks, with all the warps and everything and all the distribution that we had from before. That's happening here. And then, of course, we have to invert it, or we don't have to invert it, but it's better for the bevel node. And the bevel node, it looks as if it removes it completely, but there is still a little bit left. There is a lot of blurring going on for such a thin line, and so it looks as if the information disappeared, but it's going to be there, right? So we invert it again. I guess what you could do, you could do this invert mask, and I think that's exactly what this is, right? I'm not 100% sure, but this is what worked for me, like visually. So that's what I did. And yeah, if you run your bevel through an auto levels node, you recover the full range, but you also keep the blurriness of it, right? And so this is something that will allow you to customize the amount of beveling and blurring you get for your cracks using another levels down the line. Yeah, so whatever happened here? No, something broke. I think I had a slow blur effect here. There was a noise at some point, I imagine. All right, I guess I'll have to figure it out. Shoot, whatever happened there. Okay. Well, that's why I'm streaming, right? To fix that. Okay, so we have the auto levels, and first of all, I wanted to introduce some height variation to how deep the cracks should be. So for that, I just use a clouds noise. I vector warped it again because I was obsessed with vector warp this in this graph. I'm using levels, and you can see I'm clamping it quite a bit actually. So I'm like almost getting a black and white mask again. But then we subtract quite a bit from it again with the clouds. So that gives me height variation. Sometimes it's going to be like very deep. Sometimes it's almost going to disappear. And yeah, and then we of course use sharpen. It will give you a lot of anti-aliasing problems. Maybe I could even like throw in anti-aliasing. I don't know if that's going to help, huh? We can see. Is that better? Oh, it actually might have been. I should have used anti-aliasing now, huh? Okay, let's see if I turn it off. Well, it seems to be helping a little bit. It's not too pronounced, but so maybe it would be smarter to, instead of doing it here, it would be smarter to put it here. Yeah, let's try it here. Up and up. Because that's going to remove some of that bullshit on the edges as well. Alright, yeah. So anti-aliasing node, well, it does what it says. It anti-aliases the image, so you will get like a bit of interpolation between super sharp pixel transitions. That's very good for your height, obviously, because you get less tearing. Okay, see? It's a good idea. All right, anyway, sharpen, because again, it gives more definition to your cracks, and some of the like super fine details right here will come out. You can see that there is the bevel is still there, right? Like we have these like fairly blacks, but we also have a transition, and it's going to sort of open the cracks a little bit, but it also allows me to really like tighten the cracks again with this levels node. And you can see that it's very extreme. I basically push the contrast all the way to the black, and that gives me super thin cracks. Why is there an invert? Oh yeah, I'm doing that for a mask. I don't know if this is necessary. Oh yes, it is, because I'm subtracting, and then it would subtract everything, right? So I need to maintain a mask for this. So yeah, then I can subtract 100%, but because the mask is so there is very little data, white data in there, so it won't subtract as much. I think there is a better way of handling this, but I would have to go back and fiddle with it. This is like a lot of inverts that probably are not necessary, and this is like very extreme. Might be a better way of handling this, or very likely there is a better way of handling this. But, you know, I was trying to get as thin cracks as possible, and I sort of got there. They are still a bit thick. It comes out better at 4K, obviously, but yeah, they're also a bit uniform in their thickness. But I guess I'm happy with it, because it was a lot of like trial and error, and this is the best I can do. So, you know, sometimes it looks good like this, right? Like there you can also see the difference in the depth, but sometimes it just looks weird and like very Voronoi. It's a lot about the seed as well. All right, so that's the cracks mask, and let's actually figure out what happened here. Crack slopes. Oh, okay, so this is like a little edge damage thingy. So I wonder. Yeah. Yeah, well, we do not want this. So I was taking some noise. Let's take some noise here. What would be good? Maybe fractal sum or clouds heavy maybe. Let's see. Okay, and maybe contrast. Come on. So this is before, this is after. Yep, that could work. Well, let's see what it does here. Come on. I'm pressing all the wrong buttons today for some reason. Okay, so this is what we get. Then we do some blending, some level, and this is the one we are subtracting. So let's just crank it up and let's see what happens. It's this. It's a bit too... What's the word? It's too pixelated. I don't know. I mean, do I care? Probably don't care. Okay, let's leave it at that. So yeah, minor edge damage there. Now what else? Yeah, I also added like really fine edge wear here. It's just super, I don't know, almost barely noticeable. It shows in the roughness map, so it gives a bit of a like an interesting glinting effect on the sides of the edges. So the way I approach this is to use the difference blending mode. So what I do, I take a slow blur. You know, like it can be fairly intense. This is the slow blur. So we took the height map, then we ran it through a slow blur with like a very fairly like high frequency noise, something like fractal sum or clouds heavy, something like that. Yeah, and it gives me this like edge damage. Of course, I sharpen it a little bit, and then if you take whatever went into the slow blur and blend it with the result of the slow blur using a difference, you will just get the slow blur effect, right? Which slow blur itself doesn't allow you to do that. It will give you the whole image, but this isolates only the parts that the slow blur changed or like expanded on, or yeah, especially if you use the maximum blending mode, right? But here I'm using minimum and it also works. And so this allows you to drive the subtraction or addition only on the parts that were changed, right? So I can now say just like add more edge wear, and it will only add the difference between the input and the result. Hopefully that makes sense. Now let's see what it actually does. Yeah, it's this kind of edge wear, right? So I think my original value was like 5. It's very fine. Maybe a bit more could be interesting. Like they don't get that chipped. The tiles, I mean, in reality, they are very what's the word? Very firm, very solid. You know, so it's difficult to scratch them like this. But a little bit of that is interesting, I think. So yeah, you can do that. And also, obviously, I didn't want to subtract the whole thing, right? Like I didn't want to the edge wear or this like chip damage to go all the way to the foundation, to the bottom. So that's you don't want to subtract like 100%. Again, it would give you tearing, and it's not a very realistic result. So that's that. So yeah, we added a bit more of that like edge wear. I don't know if that like shows on YouTube, but you get this like glinting here and there when the light transitions, like you know, over the edge. You will have like it's not enough to do this in your height map. You also have to have this effect in your color map and your roughness map, obviously, right? This will give you these like color specularity transitions that are interesting. Okay, so we fixed a missing noise. Let me just do that. One thing I want to mention about optimization, so slow blurs, they need, if you want to get enough detail from them, like this fine detail, you need to maintain the resolution, okay? But of the noise that's coming in. But that's not the case for example, for warps and directional warps. You generally don't need full resolution on your noises when you're warping. So, for example, if I were to use a directional blur set to maximum instead, this cloud's heavy could be maybe 512 by 512, you know? Anyway, that's maybe a different topic for a different time. All right, so that's the edge bear. What have we here? Okay, the ceramic peel. This is the effect here. Basically, I imagine uh, the you know the surface, the fake surface, the fake marble, chipped and broke, and got removed. This is like one of the things I'm not too happy with. Mostly because it's really difficult to get the chipping effect noise right. And so I tried a lot of iterations, and for example, this shape doesn't seem to be realistic to me. It's like it's too detailed almost. It should be very, very like sharp, I suppose, and well, there shouldn't be so many curves and so many at least like curved angles. On the other hand, I don't know if I can show you some, like, yeah, for example, this is a much more natural shape for something like this. And like, it's difficult to redirect this, obviously. You're using just noises, so get the right shape with enough detail, right? And it also changes with resolution, so it's unfortunate, but yeah. So that's what I did here. So yeah, first of all, we take the map for the cracks, obviously, with the fragments, also with a black and white cracks mask, and yeah, we start with that. Then I blur it a little bit so that I remove most of the cracks. I still have a little bit, but that's what I have. Then I use a histogram select. Sorry, so unnamed player says, why not use the crack shapes and then fill again and use filter to select only a few? Why not use the crack shapes and then fill again? You mean floodfill again, and use filter to select. Well, that's the problem. Whenever you use floodfill, it will give you a black and white mask, right? So I'm not exactly sure what you're asking right now, but if I understand correctly, you're asking about the fragment removal? Okay. Can you be more specific? Can you tell me what you're asking exactly? Are you talking about the edgeware, or are you talking about the whole, crack setup to begin with? Okay, let's see if we get an answer. But I'll just continue. Maybe there is like a minute delay or something on the stream. I don't really. Okay, so you did not like the chipping shapes. I agree. They don't mimic the hardness of the material. Yes. Okay, they don't mimic the hardness. That's right. But what do you mean? Like, do the you mean like create another cracks mask and remove some of the fragments there? Oh yeah, I see what you mean now. Why not? I could have done that, yeah. I suppose it would be like another. Yes, yes, I understand now. Yes, the original cracks are. They would give me shapes that were much more natural to this kind of material. That would be more appropriate. I guess you're right. I sort of did a similar thing to mimic the second layer of the cracks of the fragments. I created um, another crack generator to create like smaller but yet similar shapes. I didn't think of that. You're right. That's a good suggestion. I suppose what I would do then, I would pretty much keep this setup. Maybe not the last parts here, the slow blurs, but I would have to create a mask that would just limit the effect to the edges again, right? Because I didn't want this kind of chipping to be in the middle of the tile. Yeah. Well, anyway, let me just show you what I did. It's probably not the best solution, but yeah. So first of all, we are removing some of the cracks again. Then we are slow blurring this. And essentially, slow blur will. I'm taking the mask that shows the base, right? Not the tiles, but the base, and I'm extending it using a slow blur, and then I will only isolate the parts that are over the tiles, if that makes sense, right? So I'm like expanding the base, the mask of the base, so that it sort of eats into the tiles, and then I'm just going to isolate it for the tiles themselves, right? So that's what's happening here, and you can see this is the result, right? But you can already see that this is very smooth, and it's not exactly the shapes I was looking for. It's not the shape I was looking for. So I tried to fix that using different noises, mostly Crystal's noise. This time set to Chebyshev. Doing some strange stuff to it, slow blurring with itself, directional warping it to get like these, more angular shapes. No, I always click the safe transform. I hate the safe transform. Okay, and then I'm just taking the grayscale mask, subtracting it, so that's one, and I'm using the same noise to drive some slow blurs here. Yeah, so that's the result that we are getting, and at the end I'm just using a small one, and so I got pretty close, but at the same time the chipping is too fine for my liking, but and also a bit smooth on the curvature sometimes. It's not ideal. So that's that. This is what we are blending in. Boom. Yeah. So it's okay. It's not perfect. So I would have to try a different approach. Maybe what you suggest is a good idea. Just take the tiles from before, the cracks from before, use that to drive the shapes. Maybe. And maybe do just a little bit of slow blurring at the end. Alright, moving on. Let me just take a note or something. Alright. So, yeah, another noise, very fine one, sharpened, leveled, and this just introduces some height variation here inside the ceramic peel. So of course I don't really know how rough this kind of ceramic material can be, but I imagined it would be at least a little like bumpy. So, and of course it's always nicer to have a little bit of grain in your material, like unless you're going for something super smooth, a little bit of grain works. So that's that. Yeah, nothing too much to talk about here. What's next? Oh yeah, so I'm taking a floodfill from before, which is the final floodfill for all these shapes and fragments, and I'm just using that to first of all, I want to change the height of each tile a little bit. And secondly, I want to introduce a little bit of sloping, right? So I want to introduce some gradients. And that's very easy with a floodfill node because you get these nodes like floodfill to gradient and floodfill to random color, or floodfill to color as it's called in InstaMAT. I also used another floodfill node. This is the floodfill to bounding box, B-box, right? So it's not beatbox, but bounding box. So what this does, this isolates, rather, it looks at the size of the floodfill islands and assigns a grayscale value according to that, right? So that's the result here. It's actually auto-leveled, but if I just look at this, there is not much you can see. But I don't know if it's you know, the info is there, but they are all pretty much the same size, so it's more or less black and a little bit of gray. But if you auto-level it, you get this, and you can see the largest tiles, they are almost white, and the smallest ones are almost black. And it's exactly what I wanted, because I wanted to isolate the small ones and maybe exaggerate the effect a little bit on the small ones, right? Maybe the big tile wouldn't necessarily be so loose and there wouldn't be so much sloping, but the small ones, they are cracked, you know, and maybe they are like bumping out of the foundation or something like that. It's just an idea. It's a backstory that I told myself, you know. So I'm inverting this. I'm using curves to introduce a bit of a transition because I didn't want to displace everything, right? I just wanted the small ones. So I'm just using a hyperbolic sort of curve here. And yeah, this is the resulting mask that I'm going to use to drive the height displacement. An interesting use of bound. Yes. I actually don't know what it's for otherwise. You know, like what else would I use it for? There are a few of these like floodfill nodes that I don't really know how to use. For example, this floodfill to index, floodfill to, what's it called? Shape info, I think. Yeah. It gives you like indices for each shape, and I don't really know what to like. How would I ever use this? I have no idea. Or there is this, what's it called? Yeah, extract by index. That's actually not bad because it goes through the. It's basically a mask that allows you to choose the index of the of each of the islands that get isolated, right? Which is fine. So if I scroll by this, it should give me a different shape, shouldn't it? Yes. Yeah, it's centered, right? Like it's going through the floodfill, and it looks at each of those shapes that it isolated, and it gives me only that shape. So it's interesting. There might be some interesting use for that, probably for scattering and atlases, right? Like let's say you have an atlas, a texture like this, for example. Whoops, come on. Yeah, so I have maybe like this. So I have a texture that I downloaded, and it's just photo scans of some branches, and this is the opacity, or like the alpha mask, and of course the floodfill will isolate each of these shapes individually, and yeah, so you can then like choose which shape you want out of the atlas. So that's essentially what's happening here, I think, with the. There is a setting for this. I don't remember. I think you can like say I want to extract only a few of them, and then you can just scatter those instead of the whole atlas. Hopefully that makes sense. So yes, there are a lot of there is a lot of like utility hidden in the floodfill nodes, and or not hidden, actually available in in the floodfill nodes. But I don't understand all of it. But so I just wanted to try it, and like I was thinking, you know, what kind of story I could tell with my material, and yeah, this is what I came up with. Anyhow, sorry for the detour. Concentrate. Okay, yes, we are getting a mask for only the small ones, and we are using the floodfill to gradient on the small ones. I also thought that I used this mask somewhere. Maybe I didn't. I should have used that. All right. Well, maybe we can do that now. That was the plan anyway. So, yeah, let's just take this maybe. Could be fun. And come on, right? And we do this, and we say something like maybe add. And so they should pop a bit more, right? You can see it here. But that's obviously way too strong, so let's just say, I don't know, 5, maybe 10 could be good. It's a subtle effect, but it will show. Oh, we can do it. All right. So, effects. Yeah, so then I'm taking the floodfill to gradients. You could use the floodfill and pass, floodfill to gradient and pass, but I only wanted one gradient at a time because these should be these are not rocks, right? Like they don't have that much like slopiness to them. So I only wanted 1 or 2 directions, and yeah, that's what I'm. In fact, I ended up using only one. I think this should be deleted. So let's see, like so. Boom, 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 boom. Let's save some performance. Okay. Yeah, so we introduce some sloping, a little bit of sloping using the screen node. Be careful, I would, in this case, I wouldn't use something like minimum or maximum because it will introduce, I can actually show you, let me solo this. If I use maximum, crank it up, you see it's going to introduce these weird transitions, and you do not want that. So screen is the way to go. Or add. Add is also good. All right. Then I am introducing some more gradients for the small ones, and that's it. Just a variation. Okay. Are there any questions? Anything? If not, I'll keep moving. But for now, I'm just gonna drink and maybe answer some messages because people seem to be well texting me. Okay. So I think multiply would also work. Yes, multiply should also work. You're right. It doesn't introduce that break. Yeah, it doesn't take well the maximum or the minimum, so it just creates a smooth slope. I know how it works, but I can't explain it in words right now. Yes, good point. Definitely, multiply would work. Screen is essentially the opposite of multiply, or like the inverse of multiply. The math is a bit different, but in effect, it's very much the same. Okay. So, yeah, the pebbles. So I introduced a lot of pebbles, obviously, right? Like these small, colorful thingies here and there. If you remember, I made a stream about this, or I did a stream about this just a few weeks ago. So I have this pebble generator. We can open it. It's very simple. I just take some shapes with some random transforms, some random rotations, feed it into a sort of this is a substitute for the tile node. It's just an Atlas grid node, but it doesn't matter. It's pretty much the same. Then we do some blurring, distortions. Take a floodfill, use the floodfill to gradient and pass, which gives us a lot of gradients in different directions over our shapes. Then we do some more deformations, etc., etc., etc. And the result is that we get 4 procedural pebbles, right? Nothing too special. So I can close this. You can watch the other stream. It's called Pebble and Polyverse, I think, something like that. It's very easy. You can also download this on my Polyverse. So yeah, go there and use this. It's yours to play with. There are 2 of them, right? Like one for smooth stones and one for these kinds of like rougher pebbles. But as you can see, I'm actually limiting the execution size to something very low, 256 times 256, because you know the shapes are super small. Even on a 4K texture, these are hardly larger than 256. So I take these and I do 2 passes essentially. One is this. It's a guided scatter. So guided scatter it's like the most powerful scatter node that InstaMAT has. It has pretty much everything from the other scatter nodes combined, and it has these inputs, which are fairly important. So first of all, you have all these settings for variation or variance. So you can obviously introduce randomness to your size, to your rotation, to your luminance, etc., etc., etc. It also has, if you use this height input, you can take the height map of your material, and it will use that information to drive for example, the rotation and the tilt of the shapes you scatter, and that helps it. It helps the shapes that you're scattering to blend in better with your material. Well, on this material, it's maybe not the most important thing ever because there isn't that much of a height difference. But for example, if I had a pebble here on this slope, maybe I would like it to be sort of tilted or skewed a little bit so that it would look a bit more as if the stone was like, on its side, like falling into the hole. Hopefully that makes sense. So you can use that with this setting, for example, this angle from slope and this scale from slope. So what scale from slope does, it takes the shape and squishes it, so it looks as if it was on its side. Yeah, and in other cases, you can actually tell the scatter to avoid slopes, right? Like let's say you have some large shapes. In my case, I use that for the twigs, which are like these really long shapes, and I didn't want them to intersect with the tiles. So I told the scatter node, or the atlas scatter node in that case, to avoid the slope if possible, right? And you can tweak it here. It also has a general density slider, so you can say how many there are, and also this collision setting. So I don't care that the pebbles collide, but let's say you have something that you don't want to collide. Well, this is your setting. And it has a lot of other stuff going on. You can drive the rotation with a grayscale map. You can use your you can feed it color for that will be like well, it will pick randomly from that color input a color for each of your shapes. You can use vector input, which will like drive the the position, right? It's like a vector warp built in, and also you can take floodfill output out of that, which is very powerful because each of those little shapes that you scatter will have their own floodfill island, and you can play with that down the line. So I did that twice. And here I also use the mask input. The mask input will, in addition to your density slider, it will also give you a grayscale mask for the distribution of the, not the distribution, for where the scattered shape appears. So I didn't want my second pass to be everywhere. So I just added a bit of a paddling noise. Not sure this is the best way. Actually, recently I discovered that there is a pretty cool node. It's called blend dissolve, or dissolve blend. Dissolve blend. So what it does, maybe I'll show you on something better. Let me just get a solid color. Let's make it white. And then we go dissolve blend. So it takes a noise okay, it takes the foreground and it essentially multiplies it with a black and white noise. So this is what the dissolve is, and you can choose different noises. So let's say we use a cellular, I can't pronounce that, cellular noise, and yeah, that's what you get. So it sort of, well, dissolves, blends the maybe the uniform scatter with some noise. So this is actually what I did manually because I didn't know that. But what I would do, I would just dissolve it with a noise here instead. Then we are using iterates. Again, I'm not going to explain how this works. Again, I've done it a billion times, but you can check it on some different stream. So that's the iterate. Then we blend these two together, so we get something very, very dense. And yeah, I'm doing some masking, and we are blending it separately for the part of the base and the tiles, because I didn't want to have that many on the tiles. First of all, it didn't look good, and secondly, it didn't make sense to me because maybe there wouldn't be that many pebbles on this like smooth surface, but they would probably be caught by the very rough and curved surface of the grid. Yeah, and this is the first time I believe that I started using blend height to get these intersection masks, or rather the not the intersection mask, but the mask output. So if I took this mask or this grayscale mask and said add, yeah, or maybe something like maximum, I would get a mask that wouldn't be accurate to where the stones actually show in the height. Because if I took this and used it for the color, for example, it would also show a lot of these dots that don't really show in the height map, if that makes sense. So using the mask here will remove some of the stuff that doesn't show in the height map after the blend. Hopefully that makes sense. It's not the best explanation, but I'll try to think of another one. So yeah, I'm using this blend, but I'm still driving this using levels. Yeah, I'm still like limiting the range for the pebbles a little bit. This allows me to fine tune how prominent they are. So yes, I'm blending in the pebbles, and this is just for the base here. Okie dokie. Yeah, one thing I should mention, it's actually a bit stupid to use the iterate after the guided scatter, right? Because it breaks the effects we set up here. This is related to the height map, but the iterated stuff isn't. But at the same time, the iterated pebbles are super small, and the effect is not as pronounced. So I kept it, but maybe not the most optimal way, right? Because yeah, simply because this gets rotated according to the slope and scaled according to the slope, but this gets rotated according to this angle, right? So you do not get the same relationship between the two, between the original height map and your scattered. Okay, moving on. I'm just okay. At this point, I'm starting to add some dirt and like fine details. So this one is just some dense noise transformed, and I'm actually taking my first height to ambient occlusion. It's actually a low quality pass. I'm not even ray traced or anything. I just wanted a bit of that like isolation for the crevices and stuff like that. So I took a really low quality height to ambient occlusion, inverted it. That gives me a mask for sort of these interior parts, lower parts, and yeah, and I'm just blending in some noises, and this will be a dirt mask, first pass of a dirt mask. So what this does, I take this, I still like take an actual noise that we are going to be blending in, dirt 3 with Freckle blended together with an auto levels. This will give me like a very dense, dirty look. sharpen, and yeah, bye unnamed player, bye, and yeah, that's the dirt pass. Okay, now this is where all the stuff comes together, really. But so we have to look at the other effects we have at the material. So I'm just gonna take a little break again. Okay. So this was, let's say, the pass that concerned the base grid. But we have two more things to do. First of all, there is this effect that I call underlay. It's this dirt, that's a level of dirt or some sort of soil that was present in the reference. I can actually show you again. Let me quickly bring that up. Yeah, so this part here, it looks to me like some sort of just dirt layer below the just below the tiles. I don't know why that was so difficult to say. Anyhow, so that's one thing we need to add, and of course we have to start treating the sort of the leaves and the additional layer of the tiles. So for that, let's start with the underlay. Where is it? Yeah, and also I also added a grout uh, effect in the middle here, but it's fairly like worn off uh, or fairly damaged, so it doesn't come through as much, but it's there, trust me. So these are the effects that we are working on now. So let's start with the isolation of the fragments, the extra fragments that will happen here. So for that, I'm actually creating a simple mask. I'm taking this cracks structured node and blending it in with some of the tile masks from before. It doesn't really matter what this is, right? Then I'm going to, this doesn't matter right now. I'm going to, there's nothing here. Why is there nothing? What's going on, eh? Why is there nothing there? Hold on. Let me just read what I did actually. Oh, I see. Okay, no, we are not going to start with that. We are going to start with this. So, yeah, taking one of the maps for the cracks before, and then I start blurring. So essentially, what I want, like before, when we were creating the sort of this, what do I call it again? Sorry, my brain is turning off. The ceramic peel effect, right? Like this cracking effect here. We wanted to take this mask and sort of expand it using slow blur. Here we are going to do the opposite. We are going to take the tiles and slow blur them outwards. So to do that, I just took some noises. I used slow blur. You could have used warp maybe with like large enough intensity and a lot of blur, obviously. Then I use a directional warp to introduce some more variation. Then again, some slow blur, and you can see that it's like I'm getting something very crazy, but it's fine. Some more slow blurring, this time set to minimum, using a different noise. And in the end, we take the mask that we had here and just multiply it in. And this will give us, sorry, multiply it in with a black, right? So this will remove the tiles and only keep the stuff that we sort of slow blurred outwards. It's like taking a difference. It's basically like taking a difference this time, right? It's just a different technique. This time I'm multiplying black using a white mask for the tiles. So this gives me some kind of crazy mask for the for where the effect of the underlay is going to take place. Okay, so what's happening here actually, I have this option of adding extra extra sort of tiles, maybe broken tiles that cover a whole sections of the grid with this setting here. So for that I took a correct structure, some mask, floodfill it, and here this floodfill to mask is what's driving the effect. That's why we didn't see anything. So let me just add a little bit of that. Now let's see how the material changes. You can see I have this now. I don't necessarily like the way it looks. It's a bit too perfect in the separation, but I wanted maybe a few tiles to be like fully covered with this. So I added that option. Maybe if this were to be like really implemented, I would have to create a better cracks mask here, or a better mask for this, so that it would make more sense. It would still stick to the edges a bit more, or something like that. Yeah. Anyway, we have the setting, so we can keep it. For example, there is a huge patch of this. I'm not sure I like it, but it's there. Okay, I'm gonna turn it off. But the option is there. You know, it might be useful for someone who would like to take this texture into say Unreal and choose where he wants this underlay effect and where he wants the tiles using vertex painting. But that's again another story for another time. Okie dokie. Let's just do this. This is a Berlin, it's a very low one, it's fine. Maybe this. Okay. So now we actually have to build the dirt layer itself, because so far we have only created a mask where it's going to show. So for that I'm doing a couple of things. It's just like your normal layering of noises. Yeah, I also so I wanted two masks, in fact. This is like the largest one. Well, all the effects or all the dirts are going to show, but I also have a smaller one where the height difference will be more prominent. So it creates like a stepping effect, right? Like a sort of a stepping gradient for the height. I saw that in the reference, so that's it. Okay, yeah, we are creating that. It's fairly blurry, of course, because it's just a mask that will say this is where it shows. Okay, and now we are starting to build the dirt itself. So I have this. No, that's not what I wanted to do. This is what I wanted to do. I have this cloud swirly noise, which gives you like a basic dirty look. I auto level it, and this is the initial sort of dirt effect. Blending it in, dirt 2, safe transforming it, again blending it in. Then I have spots 7, doing some slow blurring stuff, histogram selecting, iterating it, so I get like larger dirt specks. Sharpen it, blend it in, and so we get this kind of grunge. And of course very fine noise to just introduce even more detail. And then I added this cloud swirly and this liquid noise. Let me just do that again. Blended it in, sharpen it, leveled it out, so this gives you like a more cracked kind of look. And it's actually what brought this effect together, because before it was just weird noise, but this gives the illusion that it's like that there are like little molds in there. So that's why I like this. To be honest, this can be anything, right? Like you have to art direct your own high frequency noises. it's not a big deal, right? Like you choose your own grunge. If you have something better, then use that. I started making some grunges, for fun at night. It's usually like an exercise for like half an hour, but it's really difficult to art direct. Like you have a look that you have in mind, but actually coaxing that out of the noises can be fairly difficult, surprisingly difficult. Anyhow, yeah. So this is the dirt mask, like the fine dirt mask, and you can see it's like there are these like terraces almost, like 1, 2, 3, but it's also very noisy, and you have a bit of like this cracking effect going on. It's a bit maybe too stony. Could be more. It could be even finer, or like these edges could be less defined to get an even better effect for that. But I was okay with this. Okay, so this is the underlay effect, and for that we are also using height blend. Yeah. Here, I actually ended up not using the mask for this because I had a better mask from all that stuff before. But yeah, this is where it shows. Obviously, there are no tiles yet, but you have to imagine that the tiles are going to be blended over it, right? This is like the middle layer. So this is above the grid, the base grid, but below the tiles. Okay. Well, and then all we have to do is to take in our tiles with all that displacement and all the slopes and all the edge damage, and we also added a grout. I should talk about that as well. And we just blend it in using a height blend. So that's it. The result being this. So you can see that the material is sort of like coming together with these three blends, with the underlay and the tiles blend and the base grid blend, obviously. So before we go further, just a few things. Yeah, the grout. The grout is very simple. You essentially want to take a mask that isolates the parts where the grout shouldn't be, blur it a little bit so you get transitions, and then you create some very noisy fill for the grout. That's it. So it's just taking some of the masks that we had before and putting them together. So if you look at this, this is my opacity mask. Oops, come on. What's going on here? Why isn't it working again? Huh? Yeah, so this is like the initial tiling setup that we had. Nothing too special. This gives me the gaps. I also take this mask for the holes. Do some slow blurring, blending, inverting, leveling, so that I can isolate these shapes here. Then some more slow blurring with some grunges, stuff like that. I end up with a very fine grout texture. I ended up adding a lot of fine noise to it because I actually went to my bathroom and touched the grout that I have there, and it's very there is a lot of like soft grain in that. So I thought, why not? Let's stay true to what we know. So this is the result. Blending it in, and yeah, this is the grout. So in the result, it looks like it's like this, right? Like this brown part. It's not much, not really. I didn't want it to be too prominent because it actually wasn't present in my original reference, and it didn't make much sense. But I liked what it did to sort of isolate some of the parts. It looked a bit funny. It looked as if there was like a very sharp transition between the underlay effect and the tiles. So I just added a little bit of some like fill there. Calling it grout might be a bit too strong. Anyhow, that's the effect. Nothing too difficult. All right, so here we are. I already talked about this thing that you shouldn't do. So I did all that blending, right? And if I use the minimax on this, oops, I think you're gonna see that I'm not using the full range of my map, which is good because we are still going to be adding an additional layer of effects. But you can also see that I only have 0.2 range left, and that's not enough. So I started shifting it back, but unfortunately, if you do this with the histogram select, the values are going to start wrapping around, and we have to treat the cracks for it, if you remember from yesterday. So it's better to try to avoid this sort of post-processing height after you blend everything together with the blend heights. All right, so that's that. Okay, I said that I wanted most of my effects to be separated for the stuff that's on top of the tiles and what's on the grid. So this is what's happening here, and this is the stuff I do for the second layer of the tiles. So I'm just taking some of the cracks I had before, safe transforming them and blending them over each other. Yeah, so I get like similar shapes, yet like more frequent. Take a floodfill, obviously, to isolate stuff, and we do the trick from before again, essentially taking two masks, one that's just density and the other one that isolates the stuff by the size of the fragments. And I also did this. There is this height slope extract, which will, well, isolate this, the slopes, right, where the transitions from the 0 to 1 are the sharpest in this case. And I wanted to do, and I blurred it a little bit and created a mask because I didn't want these to appear, for example, here, right? Like if I took this fragment and had it here, it would look weird. There would be a break. If we look at the reference I showed yesterday by some artist somewhere, he has that problem, right? Sometimes he has to exaggerate the height difference here to hide it. Let me see if I can see a better here, for example, right? Like the transition is like there is like a dent there. I didn't want that, and I definitely didn't want this. So yeah, try to avoid that using this mask. So I'm not only using not only that I'm using the density input, sorry, and but also the mask input. Yeah, no, that's not the best formulation, but whatever. Yeah, so getting a mask out of that, and this is a floodfill that's very important because that's going to drive the distribution of my fragments, and I wanted 3 versions of these fragments. One that's going to have this grid texture on it, one that's going to have the regular tile texture, and the one that's going to have this like underlay dirt texture on it. So I essentially created 2 masks that will separate the 2 effects, the grid and the dirt. I also took the grid from way before, right? And I rotated it a couple of times using safe transform, but in the end I actually went for non-safe transform because I don't really think it's going to happen very often that these tiles will be at the edge. And even if they are, it doesn't really have to tile, right? It doesn't have to tile across the whole image. So actually breaking the tiling in this case is perfectly fine because look, like we are adding maybe 1 or 2. Yeah, it's not a big deal. So I don't know how much this will be visible, but here, like you can see that the rotation is different, and that's important, right? Like if you just took the same perfectly aligned grid for this loose tile, it wouldn't look good. It's a loose tile. It's not aligned to the rest of the grid, so the rotation really sells the effect. Okay, and then we are just blending it in using some of the masks from before. I'm not going to go over this. You can figure it out yourself if you're making something like that. It's actually better if you do because you know what you're doing in your own graph, right? Yeah, so we have 1 blend for the height, for the fragments that are going to come onto the tiles again, and 1 that are going to onto the grid, and some that are going to land on the tiles here. Mm-hmm. Now we are just just have to. Oh, what's this? Let's loose. It's not supposed to be there. It was a leftover texture from my experimentation with the atlases. That's fine. Yeah. So we just have to create the surface detailing. I kept it very simple. I'm just subtracting a little bit of noise, and I'm subtracting that that shape based on the fragment mask there, right? Uh-huh. The same goes for the underlay. I basically take the resulting texture of that grunge. Okay, I should have mentioned this. At the same time, or as I was working on the underlay texture, I kept taking sort of notes, right, to reconstruct a general dirt grunge along the way, which we can then use for other stuff, for coloring, for of course for this like height stuff on those loose fragments, and for roughness, obviously. Okay, so yes, this is this, just dirt noise, nothing too special. And I'm also adding the pebbles that come on top of that go on top of the tiles. So I'm just taking the map we had before, and I'm running it through a couple of noises to introduce a little bit of difference, but differentiation, but it's not really that important. And here I'm using another height blend to get the mask for where the pebbles are actually going to be. All right. So this part is actually like fairly simple. Once you have the basic masks for all your tiles and your yeah, yeah, basically once you have those like big masks, it's just a question of like layering the details. It's really not that difficult. But thinking about how you separate all these layers, that's the tough part sometimes. I got so lost in this. I was kind of tired, and I came back from work, and so let's do this. And I couldn't figure out what I was like doing, and I lost a day because I like fell into this rabbit hole and I couldn't get out. But the next day I just came back, and with a fresh head, a fresh mind, and it was done in an hour or something like that. That's just how it is. One day you spend 6 hours trying to figure something out, and it just won't budge, and then the next day it just cracks. Okay, so I think we have maybe a half an hour to go. So I'm just gonna start talking about the atlases. Now, what's an atlas? So an atlas is this kind of texture. You can download it. You can buy some, for example, on I don't know textures.com or on what used to be Quixel. It's Fab now, right? Fab. There is also one side. It's called Raw Catalog, and the thing is, when you go there, at least my antivirus always gives me a message that there is some problem. All right. I'm not sure that the site is 100% legal. I tried looking for the licensing and stuff, and it's like a bit vague. ChatGPT says that it should be a CC0. I'm not sure. So go there, use an antivirus, see whether you can use the textures for commercial purposes. But they have so many photo scans of twigs, leaves, stones, food, fruit, all sorts of stuff, and they are fairly high quality. So yeah, that's it. You can also go to ambient CG, for example, ambient CG. That's definitely CC0, so free to use. But their atlases are not that great, actually. So if you go here, Atlas, they have a few. It's not too much. They have a few leaves. The issue is that their maps are often buggy. For example, I had this opacity map for one of the leaf set. I think it was this leaf set. And even though you don't see it here, the texture actually has outlines here. So I had to go into Photoshop and fix that manually, and it's really annoying. I mean, it took like 5 minutes, but still 5 minutes. And then the leaves themselves sometimes don't really have much detail in them. So if you, I tried using this, and the height map really sucks on this, right? Even though it's photogrammetry, I can't speak today. Photogrammetry. You would expect that there would be like enough detail scan, but it looks better on the on this image than in practice when you import it into your atlas. So you have to look for a good atlas. Anyhow, so an atlas will come with an opacity mask, a black and white mask. Then you get your usual PBR passes. So this is a color pass. Then there is a roughness pass and a height pass. You usually also get a normal pass. I didn't need it in this case. I wasn't doing any normal blending for this. But you can also do this whole process only in the normal channel. You don't have to bother with the height channel. But I was working with height exclusively in this material. Anyway, so what you do, you import it into InstaMAT, or you can just link it, but I find it better to import it. It's like all in one place. Of course, your file size will be bigger, but you know, if you don't import too many of these, you won't reach, you know, that large a file. And yeah, you get the maps. Now, there is a set of nodes, atlas, right? Let me see. So you have the atlas scatter, which is only for a single channel. Then you have the atlas grid, which is where you, if you wanted to create an atlas, you can use it. You can do this using this grid. And you have this material scatter, which is for atlases that come with multiple PBR textures, obviously. Then you have this atlas extract by index. Essentially, it's the same with the floodfill. It looks at the map. It isolates one of the islands and gives you only that. So let's say you didn't want to. Yeah, we could plug all these in, and we only wanted. Okay, let's do this. So we take the opacity. Wait, you have to set it up. So where is it? Use mask. So you need to use the mask. Boom. Then you use the color. And we use the height, for example. Yeah. And so now it extracted only one of those shapes based on this. Right? There is a floodfill running under the hood, obviously. Now you can then change the index, and it will give you a different shape from the atlas. So let's say you don't want to use all of these shapes, but only 3 of them. You would have to extract them like this. Okay. Now this is a monster of a node. So it's essentially a guided scatter with additional settings for height blending, with additional settings for each of the channels, with the settings for the handling of the atlas image, right? So take everything you know about all of these and add in the extra layer of atlas scattering, and this is what you get. So it took me a while to wrap my head around this, but once you know the other nodes, like your floodfills and your guided scatters, it's essentially the same plus an extra menu, so it's not a big deal. So what you want to do is to say, I am using an input image, right? I'm using an input image to drive the scattering. You have other options here. You can use a floodfill output, or I don't know what the default does exactly. Not sure. Then another important thing is here you have your your branches, right? If you don't use this setting that says relative to maximum, it's going to try to scatter each of the shapes normalized to the size of the texture. Essentially what it does, it extracts it in the index and sort of crops it out. And when you crop it, auto crop it, it's going to try to fill the whole texture space with the image as much as possible. So it makes it larger than it was originally. So you want to say relative to maximum so that the proportions stay the same. I imagine this is the largest shape here. So relative to maximum means that it's going to look at this shape and retain the scale proportions relative to this largest shape, relative to the maximum of the shape. Okay, you have some additional settings. Of course, you can do you can filter the shapes by their size, by their area, just like we did with the flood fills before. It can be useful to specify which part of the atlas you want to use. In this case, I didn't mind like getting any of these branches, so that's fine. What else is there? Yes, this height setting is very important. So first of all, you have this background fit. This is essentially a slope warp. There is a slope warp node. This one. So this takes a height input, and we want, let's do something that where it's going to show stripes. Yes, let's use stripes. You can see, right? Like this is the original image. I have a Perlin noise here, and it's going to try to warp it so that it fits the curvature or the slopeness of the Perlin noise. This is the slope warp. So this is very useful when you want to scatter your leaves or your I don't know, your soft objects, right? And you want them to hug the surface of the height map that you're scattering on. So this is the slope warp. Now that's exactly what this does, right? So when you have the background fit, it means how much it fits the input height map. So I'm just taking the this height map, and I'm using that to drive the the background fit here. I didn't use that too much for the branches because the branches are obviously very solid or fairly solid. They don't really bend on the surface like leaves do. But I used this heavily for the leaves, right? I wanted the leaves to sort of copy the shape of the grid a little more. Okay, what else is there? The settings for, I don't exactly know what the sampling range does. When I turned it to 1, I got a little more definition on the scattered shapes. So I kept it there. I don't exactly know whether it's like the sampling range from the atlas or whether it's the sampling range from the input height or what's going on there. I don't know. Maybe someone could explain this to me. All right, scale variance. Well, you want to introduce how, like, maybe not in this case because things are fairly flat, but let's say you have like a rock shape and you want to add some, I don't know, some pebbles onto it, right? And maybe some of them are like lower and some of them are more above, more like higher, and more above, higher. So that's the height scale variance will help you with that. There's also an offset variance. Again, this will help you, and I use that for the leaves a bit because if you just scatter everything on a single level, it will look as if the leaves are intersecting. You want them to be sort of layered, right? To be on top of each other. So that will help you with that. You can also skew them. This will take the shape and rotate it so that it looks as if, for example, the branch was like partly in the ground, right? It's like introducing a gradient with a floodfill to gradient. And then we have the slope settings. So again, it takes a look at the transitions in your material and extracts the slope with the height extract node, I imagine. And you can specify whether it's going to try to rotate the scattered shapes to fit the slope, the direction of the slope, whether it should scale it a little bit based on the intensity of the slope, and of course whether it should avoid slopes. All right, then you have your typical scattering settings like density. You can use an input mask for that, which I'm not doing if I'm not mistaken. So maybe we can. Oh yeah, I'm not doing that. That's fine. For the branches, I have collisions turned on. I don't want them to be intersecting anywhere. I don't have that for the leaves, obviously. And yeah, then you can specify the variance for what shapes get picked from the atlas. I kept this to your normal setting, your default setting. Offset and size stuff. I don't have to explain that again. There is a material 1 panel. Essentially, this is where you put where it shows the inputs, settings for the normal map. If you're using a normal map, how it should combine. So as you know, there is this combine normal combine node. Yeah, it takes a normal map and a detail normal map and sort of fits the detail normal map onto the base normal map. Let me see if I can demonstrate. So height to normal. So this is oh, it's just the Pebbles. Shoot, let's use something else here. Yeah, so this is our material. This is the normal, and we want this. Right, and so here I can input another normal. This time let's just use, I don't know, let's do this height to normal, and this is going to be our detail normal. If I plug it in, it's going to try to fit the vectors from this normal map onto the vectors of this normal map, right? And you can specify a mask. So now we have the stripes drive where the effect takes place. So that's what's going under the hood, obviously. And you can control it from the normal tab. Yeah, the detail opacity and all that. Those are the settings from the combine normal node. You can also the specular tab, which really should be called the roughness map, but there is also a metalness variance, because obviously you can use the roughness inputs and metalness inputs if you're scattering something metallic. I don't know how often that happens, but you can do that. And you can add some roughness variance for each individual scattered shape, and you can do the same for color, and I did do that. So if you look at base color, you can introduce some hue variance, duration, luminance, and alpha variance. Basically, it will shift the values a little bit for each of the scattered shapes. So for example, the leaves I have here, they were pretty much monochromatic or almost monochromatic from the atlas, but I added quite a lot of variance there, and yeah, it sort of, some of them are like have a lot of color, they are fairly saturated, some are fairly desaturated. I liked that colorful effect, I guess, so I did that. So yeah, that's the atlases. Now, the issue with an atlas is blending, especially for something like this where you have like essentially two materials and you don't want them to intersect exactly, but at the same time you want maybe some transitions, right? So let's say I have this branch here, and quite what can happen is that it will scatter it here, and it will try to eat into the tiles, and you obviously don't want that. So that was why I created these masks here. It was a lot of trial and error. I don't know if I'm going to explain this in detail because it's not that relevant. It's like a very border case, liminal case of what can happen with scattering atlases like this, because you want to avoid these harsh transitions. What I ended up doing in the end is like taking the same mask of the tiles and just subtracting it from the scattered shapes so that the intersection wouldn't be as visible, and that they just fixed it visually. Like no one's going to notice that there is a part of the branch missing unless they are really looking for it. So that was fine. Yeah, and then also I'm using the other channels, right? So the roughness and the base color, and I'm just creating masks for that as well for a later blending. So you can see I'm subtracting a part of the branch because it was like over the tiles, and I don't want that. Okay, so that's the branches or the twigs. Now I have these leaves. Again, I think from the raw catalog, unless I'm mistaken. Yeah. So you often get a map like this. You shouldn't be. Don't worry about these weird shapes. This is called a dilation, and essentially what it does, it's the same as the distance node, right? You don't want too harsh transitions here because sometimes you will have like anti-aliasing errors, and there will be black spots or white spots along the edges. So you want to stretch the color of the pixel outwards until it meets another cell like this. This is just to prevent artifacts. Yeah. So quite often your atlases, your colors for atlases will look like this. It doesn't matter because you still have the opacity mask, and that's what you want, right? But this is a black and white mask, so you definitely would have like black spots if you didn't do the dilation there. Okay. Now, so I'm not going to go over each setting again. It's just that, yeah, we are scattering, we are introducing some offset variation there, and we are doing this twice, once for the grid and once for the tiles, because I thought maybe I shouldn't have too many leaves on the tiles to have the pattern show through a little more. And also, again, like thinking about it from a physical standpoint, the leaves would probably gather on the lower, rougher parts of the material. It's that. And I also added another set of leaves. This one is probably from Ambient CG, the ones I used and fixed personally, right? There were like white lines here, so I had to go to Photoshop and just like brush in the blacks there. Same idea, same scattering. I scattered a lot more onto the tiles and just a few on onto the grid and just a few onto the tiles. Yeah. And then I'm just adding some final touches of dirt, basically this effect here, and some AO dirt into the crevices. Like, I'm not going to go through this in detail. We have done this a billion times. It's just a few noises, maybe a bit like distorted, but not even that. I'm just reusing the noises I had before, right? Like, I don't want to introduce 100,000 noises for everything I do. It's not necessary. Even though I didn't optimize this graph that well, I still reuse quite a bit. Even though I can see that I'm now adding clouds heavy there. Probably could have taken a different one. Also another fractal sum. I probably have like 1,000 fractal sums in this graph. Could maybe reuse them, but you know, sometimes it's just better to move forward and then maybe try to optimize things if you really need. But like, how much time is that really going to save? 2 milliseconds, 4 milliseconds? I mean, when you have thousands of milliseconds, you would have to optimize like 100 times to get something that's actually relevant. So I don't bother that much with it. All right. So yeah, find that, and that's it. That's it for the height. There's one last thing. I actually liked an effect I was getting for the edge wear, and so I exaggerated it or like emphasized it in the height map as well, but that's just a minor detail, no, like for my OCD, nothing else. And so what's left, and that's no small part of the graph, of course, is the albedo creation and the roughness creation. Yeah, I think that's probably for the weekend. Yeah, I've already shown the marble effect. That's a subgraph here. I'll go through it again just quickly, not in such a detail, but I'll go through it again next time. And then we are going to talk about how it all comes together with the color and the roughness. And that's it. That's the graph. So thanks, Mike, for staying with me the whole time. Thanks to the guys in the future. If you ever watch this, my YouTube statistics say that the average time that people watch is just a few minutes. So I speak for 2 hours, but people probably don't last. I don't know if that's because just I'm unbearable and people can't listen to me, or because they just don't have the time, or whether the statistics are lying. I don't know. I understand that maybe nowadays people prefer more concise, less improvised videos, but to be frank, that's not really me. I can do it, but I prefer, you know, unprepared public speaking. That's always how I used to do things, even in academia. I would just take a few notes maybe, and just work with that instead of like writing down every single word and preparing a script. I understand that it leads to problems, but at the same time, it's more organic, if you will. So that's that. Hopefully, this will be useful. If anything, hopefully it's going to be useful to you, Mike. Thanks again for your patronage. I don't know if that's the right word, patronage in this case, but thank you, and enjoy. And I'll see you around. So bye bye.